Today's guests need no introduction, but in case for some reason you've never turned on a television set, Jon Stewart is the iconic host, writer, and executive producer of The Daily Show, which during his tenure at the helm won over 22 Primetime Emmy Awards. Jon is also a huge advocate for 9/11 emergency responders. Jon and Tracy are emerging heroes in the movement by using their big, passionate, wonderful voices to draw attention to the benefits of the whole food, plant-based lifestyle. Enjoy. Thank you for being on the Plant Strong podcast. This is season.
It's an honor.
Yeah, this is season 2, and the theme is the heart of a hero. And you guys, I can't think of two people that have bigger hearts and are doing heroic things.
Well, bigger, actually, healthier hearts than they had. I don't want to. Is that a good segue?
Oh, it's a great segue.
It's interesting you bring up heart health.
Thank you. But let's backtrack for a sec.
Okay.
So I first met you, Tracy.
Yes.
You came to an Engine 2 immersion.
I did.
In, I think it was June.
Right, in North Carolina.
Asheville, North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you decide to go to that event?
I think what was happening was I had been vegan for a really long time, and I was going and getting my blood work done, and the numbers were coming back not great. I mean, not terrible, but we kept saying, I don't understand this. I'm eating a healthy diet, and then on top of that, I was gaining a lot of weight, and so I just couldn't put it together. I was asking lots of people. And I knew about your father's work, and somehow I saw the advertisement for the immersion and thought, like, maybe they'll have the answers. And boy, did you. So then I went, and I realized, like, while I was eating a vegan diet, though, I was still eating a lot of oil, a lot of processed foods, a lot of sugar, a lot of chips. So it was really recognizing those things that I still hadn't been doing that were great for my health.
Yeah. Now, so she says, honey, I'm going to go to this week-long, retreat in the mountains of Asheville, North Carolina. Are you like, this sounds like a weird cult? I mean, did you have any opinions about her going?
Listen, I've always, for the most part, and we've talked about this before, like when she got involved in, animal rescue and things like that, I've always been living in a church I'm not really a member of. It was always that kind of thing where they'd all come in and I would. And so I've moved along much more slowly. I mean, when she first met me, I was probably more corned beef than man. At that point, like I've never been particularly healthy. So the influences, for instance, that I imparted to Tracy were like smoking. Like when we first met, I got her to smoke. And so I've always been the not person you're supposed to listen to.
Yeah.
She's always been at the vanguard, sort of ahead of more positive change. And then I always grumble about it. And then I'll go like, all right, honey, I'll do it for a little bit. And then I'll do it and go like, yeah, sure, I feel better and look better and have more energy. But remember when we used to smoke? So I'll throw that out there every now and again. So when she came back, she started to do your program.
Yeah.
And the thing that I think got me into your program is I had your big bowl, Rip's big bowl. Mm-hmm. So every morning I come down, she go over breakfast, and go, give me Rip's big bowl. And yet I eat it out of a very normal size.
Right. The irony.
The irony. But that's sort of how it started.
Yeah.
For me.
And the night before I was leaving Asheville, and I called Jon, and I was crying, and I said, this has been such a positive thing that's happened to me. I'm really afraid I'm not going to stick with it. I know this is the answer. I just hope I can do it. Mm-hmm. And so, he then later called me back and said, listen, you have to remember that you found out you had celiac disease and you never had gluten again. you found out what happens in the meat and dairy industry, and you never ate animals or dairy again. So I think you're going to be able to do this. And then when I came home, I felt like, he's always someone that just doesn't take anything on face value. So he had a lot of questions, and the beauty of the immersion was there wasn't a question that he had that I didn't have an answer for. And so I think you very quickly realized, like, oh, this makes perfect sense. And,
Can you think of a question that you had for her that you wanted addressed or answered?
Well, she came back with a great deal of science.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of, and things I'd never even heard of in terms of, here's an odd conversation to have with your wife. Honey, you really need to bathe your endothelial cells in something more positive because you really want to generate that nitric oxide.
Huh.
And then I would say, I missed you too. So we move it like those kinds of things.
I can't believe that
Yeah.
5 minutes in we're already talking about endothelial cells. And
Yeah,
nitric
there we
oxide.
That was
This is
literally, as soon as she came home, I was like, how was it? She goes, well, my endothelial cells have much less friction
They
than
are-
they've had in quite some time.
they're bathed.
They're bathed in.
yes.
So no, I'm always interested in it. The odd part of all this is that it's not that everyone doesn't know it. Like any program that ever says, well, how can you be healthier? They say, well, more fruits and vegetables and things like that. Maybe they don't necessarily delve into the more negative aspects of what those other diets do. But it's clear that something sinister has occurred in the American diet over the last 40 or 50 years. And, that foods are no longer kind of recognizable as foods, and that there's got to be some consequence to that. And I think we see it in the overall health and welfare of the country.
Yeah.
But she, was so impressed by the science of it and the way that it had been laid out. But more importantly, I think it was the way it made her feel. It's one thing to have better numbers. Like you could tell me, oh, your blood pressure's not 140 over 90 now, it's 120 over 80.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be like, oh, I don't give a shit about that. I don't even know what that means.
Mm-hmm.
But waking up without feeling like you're in a fog or not falling asleep every day around 4, like for a nap, those are the things that show you the difference.
I had sleep apnea when I arrived at the immersion.
She's-
I don't have that anymore. So things like that, like real quality of life changes.
Were you having to wear anything
No.
for it? No.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
I kept getting fitted for mouthpieces,
Mm-hmm.
and nothing was working.
I would just do this every 5 minutes.
So since you've been back, you're sleeping much better
Yeah.
then and all that.
Yeah.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so you were already vegan,
Mm-hmm.
and now you're. How would you classify yourself now? If somebody was to say, Tracy, how do you eat?
I mean, I love Plant Strong. I mean, I love to say that because
Right.
then when people haven't already heard about that term, it's nice to be able to talk about specifically what that is.
Yeah.
But I would say we probably say that we eat a whole food, plant-based diet.
Right. And then were you vegetarian?
Yeah.
Going back. So what caused you to be vegetarian going back and why?
A lot of it was, I don't know, when I eat, I don't like to have people stare at me disapprovingly. So when I would be eating at home and I would look up and I would see her staring at me disapprovingly.
And this is when you were more corned beef than man?
That's right.
Okay.
And then she would say things like, how's your cow tears? Tastes pretty good. How's that cow pus treating it? No. And I'd be like, pretty good. It's not the best cow pus I've ever had, but it's
A little tastier than yesterday.
a little better. Yeah. She's like the nicest person and most compassionate. So following her along that, it may not necessarily be the thing that I would have realized on my own.
Mm-hmm.
But, and she doesn't do it what I like about how she approaches things is she sort of approaches it with a love of animals and science, but also of people. Like, you know, sometimes I think within those movements, they can be difficult. And people can be well-intentioned, but there can be a certain
Lack of compassion.
lack of compassion, but also a dogmatic that the entire thing is a litmus test for purity. That there's kind of a rigidity to it that, for me, as someone who's generally contrarian, annoying, that rigidity, I would prefer to fight against it, even if I think it's the right thing, just because it's rigidity. But she always approaches it with a sense of increments, like, I think this is better, I've looked into this, this is better for me morally, health-wise, you know, I think it does positive things generally in society. I think it lines up better with my values and who I am, but also these other things. You know, maybe we try to do something a little bit better with that. And that, I find that I adapt to that more quickly than, let's say, what I would call my mother's approach.
I have to go.
Sorry. But you know what I mean, where it's more dogmatic.
But so do you know, like, so you went vegetarian, do you know when that was and how long it's
It was
been?
after I left the show, probably. Because I remember
So
it was right around when I was leaving the show, we had like a big rap party afterwards.
and when you say the show, what show are we talking about?
It was Jack's Big Music Show, the puppet show.
Yeah,
that
yeah,
I did for children.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a Comedy Central.
Yeah.
So at the end of it, we did a rap party, and so as like a nice thing for the party, it was catered in small measure by like every restaurant that like was my favorite. So it was like Second Avenue Deli, Shake Shack. Like it was all the places that I ate all the time at, and what they had done is they'd made like plates of like the mini ones. So it was like mini cheeseburgers, mini corned beef sandwiches, mini brisket, mini all this stuff. And but I'd made the switch like 2 weeks before. So luckily there was one place that I ate at that had almond butter and poached pear sandwiches.
Yeah.
So like I spent my rap party eating almond butter and poached pear sandwiches while the smell of brisket wafted in. But I think that was probably when I first started, right? Because that's when we had first been. That's when I first realized, like, oh, pigs have personality.
So was that before or after you guys started the animal sanctuary?
She'd been working. We had not started ours yet, but Tracy had been working. Oh no, we had Buffalohead at that time. Oh, we did. All right, so we had started.
Okay.
Did we?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's when it started. Like once you're out in the backyard petting the bellies, you're like, okay.
We would have instances where some of the animals were more compromised and needed medicine through the night when we first started. And so we would then end up, sneaking them into our house so that we could, take care of them better, 24-hour. And so then I think you really spent quality time with some of the guys and recognized more than he had.
Yeah. So when did you start this kind of journey with kind of rescuing animals? And
Well, I had written a book called Do Unto Animals, and so in the research of the book, I had first started, the first chapter is about how we can do better for our companion animals. The second chapter is how you can do better with the animals in your backyard, and the last is farm animals. So as I was doing the research for that chapter, I was starting to learn a lot more that I didn't even realize. And so then that was immediate. I immediately changed the way I was eating. I mean, I had been vegetarian for a long time, but I went vegan overnight.
when was that?
I would say that was 8 years ago.
Uh-huh.
Does that sound right?
Mhm.
Yeah, so, it's funny because I was thinking about like timing of things, and it does really feel like it's like for this, as far as like our health goes, I really feel like it's, before the immersion and after the immersion, as far as like what a difference in our lives we felt from a change in the way that we're eating. So that feels newer.
So where we're sitting right now, this is called Hoxton, is that correct?
Hoxton Farm.
What's that name?
It's
It's meant to be hard to say.
it's great for branding.
It was.
I heard the term yesterday, muckety mucks. And I'm like,
Yes.
Believe it or not, I didn't know what that meant.
The muckety muck?
A muckety muck.
Yeah, the muckety mucks actually live out in Hawk. That's
Awesome.
part of it.
But Hoxton made me think of muckety mucks.
Well, this
but-
farm has been around for hundreds of years, and so that was the original name, and so we kept the original name.
Oh, it's,
She kept wanting to change it to like Kindness Farm, and I was like, no. We're going to stay with something incredibly esoteric and difficult to say,
yes.
and it's going to make the T-shirts unwearable. That's what we wanted to do.
Can you tell me what kind of animals we have on this farm?
Yeah.
Because hopefully you'll give me
You'll
a
get to
tour.
meet them.
Yeah.
Right now we have 4 horses, we have 4 pigs, we have 2 large pigs, industrial pigs, and 2 potbellies. We have 5 sheep.
What does that mean, industrial pig?
The kind that are in production. So there are pigs that are in meat production,
Oh, okay.
and those would be considered
And
industrial.
those are the ones that are a couple hundred pounds.
Yes,
Like 500, 600.
yeah.
They're
So we have some of those.
yeah.
And then we have
And
a
they
little
live long,
potbelly.
so they get to be, they don't live long when they're in production, but if you say, so they'll end up 700, 800 pounds.
When you say live long, are we talking like, I don't know the lifespan of a
7, 8
pig.
years, I think.
No,
Yeah.
longer than that.
Oh, is that true?
Like similar to a dog.
Okay. So
Yeah.
8 to 15 years maybe?
Right, but it's been interesting because a lot of our animals, because they are living longer than veterinarians are able to see normally, we've had a lot of interesting conversations with veterinarians, and they're very interested in helping us treat the animals because they're learning too, because they don't really usually have the opportunity to see the animals past them being, young.
Yeah.
Like we have a goat that has a condition called tetralogy of Fallot, which is this heart condition that's congenital that causes backwash of the one of the atria, I guess, which gets a backwash in it, and they've never, you don't see it in a production animal. So when they figured it out, like it's this crazy thing. So now they're talking about maybe having the veterinarian from UPenn work with one of the heart surgeons from CHOP to see if they can come together.
Right.
It's to them, it's interesting.
Yeah.
And for us, it's this goat named Grover who is just the sweetest goat I've ever met in my life. He's just a wonderful little guy. So we're going to do whatever we can to make his life fantastic. He's living a great life right
Who
now.
names the animals?
Usually my daughter, but that Grover, I named Grover on the way home once we picked him up.
Yeah. Is it fair to say that all the animals on the farm are vegans?
Absolutely, they
Eating
are.
plant strong?
They are.
Yes.
Wait till you see what our pigs eat. You will love it.
Yeah, pigs are
You'll-
plant strong.
Yeah.
You have to be really careful, especially with the industrial pigs, because they're bred to gain. All these animals, for the most part, are bred to gain weight. So you have to be really careful, especially with the chickens and the larger pigs, because given they're left to their own devices, they're bred to gain weight incredibly quickly. So you have to be very careful with their diets to keep them from really having tremendous health problems after a certain point.
So our pigs eat a kibble that's made at Ross Mill Piggy Sanctuary. So it's a special kibble for them, and then they get what we call toppers on top of other food, which is tofu, peas, beans, vegetables. So people will come in and see the food.
Yeah. We forgot to mention, we're nuts. I should we have mentioned that off the top? You might want to, I don't know if you have chyrons on your podcast, but these people are bananas. They give their pigs toppers.
There's some bananas right there.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've been a dog lover my whole life, and to me, there's nothing like having a dog to round out the family and make it complete. About 9 years ago, my wife and I lost our beloved dog, Petey, who was a blue heeler border collie mix at the age of 9 to liver cancer, despite the fact that we were feeding him the most top-notch, commercially available dog food. And so we immediately decided that we would start feeding all of our dogs our plant-based leftovers or a special plant-based concoction that we started making. And we did that for the last decade until we found Wild Earth. And now it's been a relief because we know that Jade, our current dog, who's a rescue and a little over a year and a half and super active, is getting all the nutrition that she absolutely needs, and she absolutely adores the flavor profile of it. So if any of you are interested in checking out Wild Earth, go visit my buddies at wildearth.com and use the code PLANTSTRONG for 40% off. And if you want to get all of your needs from Amazon, the code PLANTSTRONG works just as well there. Thanks.
I'd love to know how you guys met.
It's a great story. It's. You want me to tell it?
Sure. It's long.
It's long.
It
So
has to do with prison.
how many years ago? Let's see.
25.
Okay, so 25 years ago, I had moved back to New York from California. I had gotten out of a bad relationship, and so my friends were all trying to set me up with people, and so I was going on dates and not having a great time. And then there was a day where a friend of ours was getting rid of a black and white TV. We didn't have a TV, my roommate and I. So she gave us the TV and we turned it on. And when we turned it on, John was on the David Letterman show. And I immediately said, oh my God, who is that? And, was immediately...
Was he killing it?
He was killing it. He was handsome. He was funny. So a few days went by and then I realized he had a show, which at the time was the Jon Stewart Show.
Yeah,
on
that was
UPN.
That's right.
And so I would stay, I'd be watching it every night. And so then my friends would start to joke and say, oh, Tracy's not coming out tonight. She's staying home with her TV boyfriend, Jon Stewart. Now, meanwhile, I don't know him.
Yeah.
No, what she didn't realize is inside the TV, I could see her too. So
But we actually did live about 8 blocks away from one another.
Yes, that's true.
Not that I knew that ahead of time or anything, like I was stalking him.
Yes.
So I was working at J. Crew in the design department, and we were right next to the PR department. And so everybody knew that I had a crush on him because they would be saying, well, what kind of guy do you like? And I would say, someone like him, that's my type. And
What is somebody like him?
Short. Hirsute.
someone that just seems very kind, very thoughtful, very curious,
Honey.
funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I like the blue eyes, and I like them close set, and I like a big nose.
Jews. She likes Jews. That's what are you gonna do?
What are you gonna do?
Yeah.
So anyway, everyone knew that I had a crush, a TV crush on him.
Yeah.
So one day, my roommate was working on a film set, and John came by to visit a friend, and they were all sitting around smoking and talking about how it was really hard to date in New York City. And my roommate said, well, I know someone who thinks you're really handsome, and she's this, this, and this. You should go out on a date with her. So she wrote my phone number on a $1 bill and gave it to him. Now, I'm home, and she comes home and she says, so, Jon Stewart's going to be calling you. I gave him your phone number on a $1 bill. And I think she's teasing me because it's made such a big deal that I have a crush on him. So I don't believe it for a little while. Then he calls and he leaves a message, and I still don't believe it because his voice was very raspy. And I didn't realize his voice was that
You
deep.
do have a raspy voice.
Yeah.
That's more.
So he called me. We had a great conversation, and I said, I actually think he's a nice guy. I think he's a normal person.
Because her friend had sold her high.
Right.
Like it was one of those things where your friend's like, she is the most vivacious and sweet, really smart, really funny. And I was like, I don't believe you. I really thought it was one of those things where it's like, you can't believe, how good this is. But so then we talked, and I was like, oh, Sounds lovely.
All right. So then he says, so I have a lot to do this week. I'll call you on Friday and we'll meet up. So Friday comes, no phone call. Saturday, no phone call. Sunday, nothing.
Hello.
And I'm saying, oh, because some of my friends were saying, oh, he's, watch yourself. He's a famous guy and you're going to get hurt. So by Sunday I was saying, yeah, you know what? I think he fooled me. So it was about 11 o'clock and the phone rings. And here he had spent the dollar bill on a pack of cigarettes. And
lost it.
Yes, lost the number and had to go through the whole call sheet of the film to figure out who the girl was that he was talking to that gave my number.
Because she had said that Tracy was her roommate. So once I gave away the dollar bill for delicious cigarettes, then I had to figure out again. I had to go back and it took me a couple of days.
Yeah.
Because then I had to get the call sheet from the film. It was in Indy. So I had to call my friend, then he had to come in, then I had to get that call sheet, then I had to go through and try and figure out, like, okay, who was this person? Because their number was on the call sheet for production. It was the production call sheet. And I knew they were roommates, so that finally when I got it again, I could call. So then we went out the next day.
We went.
Well, so when that phone rang, were you just like,
Hey, jerky.
Oh my! I
No.
couldn't wait.
they didn't have caller ID, so you probably didn't know who it was, right?
No.
Well, we went on a date.
Yeah.
And we went to a Mexican restaurant, and at that point now it's all settling in that I kind of feel ridiculous and probably am worried that he thinks like I'm just being silly. I had a crush on him because he was on TV and I'm feeling uncomfortable. So I don't eat the entire date. So he eats both of our burritos and then he thinks, oh, she
Delicious.
doesn't like me. She's not talkative. So I said,
Not only did she not eat, she didn't talk.
so I said, when I'm nervous, I tend not to talk. So just keep talking and I will eventually relax and start to talk.
You actually said that?
Yeah.
Oh.
And so,
By the way, it wasn't until after we eat, I'm like, all right, well, this was delicious, but it didn't go very well. I had 2 burritos and basically just talked the whole time. And then I thought I'd just last ditch effort, like, so I liked her. I mean,
Yeah.
but when we talked on the phone, I said, let's just go get a drink. And boy, wasn't that to get a couple of pops in it. Pop, 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 pop.
Yeah.
So then the dime turned, and then I was like, okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
now we're okay. So then I just figured, like, well, this will be great. I'll just have to keep her inebriated. And it's been 25 years, and she is hammered still.
Thank goodness you're eating well now.
I want to tell them one last part of the story, though, is then we stayed out till like 3 a.m. and then I arrived in work the next day. He called me at like 10 a.m. and said, would you like to have lunch today? So we went out to lunch and then we came back and we were standing out in front of the building and he had picked me up and was swinging me around in a circle. And the girls from PR who never knew any of this had happened just were walking into the building like, what is happening? So, I mean, it was such a fun time.
Yeah, we had fun.
When Tracy Stewart came to our retreat in Black Mountain, North Carolina, we had literally no clue who she was until a few hours before she left on the very last day. It's the same for anyone who comes to our retreats. We drop all professional titles and resumes at the door, and we all enter as equals who come together for one common goal: to do better and to be better. I invite you to visit our website, planstrong.com, click on events, and download our new 2020 events catalog and check out all the experiences that we're hosting this year. Spend 5 or 6 days with us in one of 3 spectacular venues nestled in nature. Come to Black Mountain just outside Asheville, North Carolina, and experience the lush forests and the mountain streams. Or come to magical Sedona, Arizona, and experience the transformative Red Rocks. Or come to Silver Bay in the Adirondack region of New York and experience the pristine Lake George. As Tracy shared, you'll have a front row seat to the science behind the lifestyle, and you'll build the daily habits alongside our team of experts so you can go home and be totally set up for success. Visit PlantStrong.com for more details and use the code PLANTSTRONG for $150 off any 5 or 6 day retreat. Aren't John and Tracy just the absolute best? Now, after that charming story, we're going to stop there for today and take a little break. Next week, we'll talk more specifically about how John and Tracy are fueling their lifestyle, how their numbers have improved since Tracy came back from the immersion, and a whole lot more. If you'd like to watch the interview, we filmed it entirely. Please go to plantstrongpodcast.com for the link. Thank you for listening and subscribing to our show. I want you to know that we read each and every one of your reviews, and we appreciate each and every one. If you want to learn more about this season or today's guests and sponsors, please visit plantstrongpodcast.com. The Plant Strong podcast team includes Scott Badasil, Lori Kordowich, Amy Mackey, Patrick Gavin, Wade Clark, and Carrie Barrett. I want to thank my parents, Dr. Caldwell B. Esselstyn Jr. and Ann Kryle Esselstyn, for creating a legacy that will be carried on for generations and being willing to go against the current and trudge upstream to the causation. We are all better for it.